Hello, good afternoon. This is the Al 24 News. I'm Abdurrahim Kashur. To the headlines. In Sudan, 6 casualties and protesters still moving forward. A newly expected Tunisian protest over the political and economic crisis in the country. A prison bloody clash in Ecuador resulted in the death of 16 people and 25 injured. Starting from Algeria, the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of the Republic of South Africa, Nel de Pandour, stated that Algeria and South Africa will always work together to overcome all the problems of the African continent. And she emphasized on the idea that South Africa and Algeria will never desert the Palestinians and Western Sahara people. Let's have a listen.
Algeria and South Africa will continue to work closely in all international bodies, particularly in the context of the United Nations, and most importantly, in the context of the African Union. We very strongly believe that as Algeria and South Africa, given the history of our fight against colonialism, that we have an obligation to continue to strive for the self-determination of the people of Western Sahara. We also believe very strongly that we cannot desert the people of Palestine. Not many countries are continuing to strive to ensure that the people of Western Sahara are free and the people of Palestine enjoy freedom and human rights. We will never desert the people of Palestine as South Africa. We will never desert the people of Sahrawi as South Africa, because we believe every human being deserves the right to enjoy freedom and autonomy.
For his part, Ramtana Mamra, the Algerian foreign minister, affirmed that Algeria and South Africa are two countries that defend the rights of people to freedom and everything related to interests of the African continent. Let's have a listen again.
Algeria and the Republic of South Africa raised their voices together when it comes to defending the Palestinian cause and the Western Sahara cause, and all what supports the interests of the African continent and building a strong, solid, and independent Africa. An Africa that thinks, plan, and execute the African solutions to the African problems with complete independence and freedom.
In Tunisia, activist protests rejecting measures taken by the army chief Abdel Fattah Burhan continue in Sudan amid international calls for calm, at a time when other protests resulted in 6 casualties and many injuries, according to what was announced by the Central Committee of Sudanese Doctors. More to be clarified, Asma reports.
The situation in Sudan is not heading towards calm in light of the army commander Abdel Fattah al-Burhan's ignorance of international calls to respond to the protesters' demands and persistence of civil society activists to force al-Burhan to withdraw his recent decisions. Ongoing protests come for the second day in a row in response to calls by the Sudanese Professionals Association and the resistance committees, hours after the army chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan announced the formation of a new sovereign council that excludes the union of civilians. The situation soon developed in various Sudanese cities as the security forces closed roads and strategic sites, including the presidential palace, the government headquarters and the airport, according to what was reported by local media and news agencies. Central Sudanese Doctors Committee announced that 6 people were killed and various injuries were recorded during the protests, while the Sudanese police denied the use of real bullets against the demonstrators, confirming that about 40 of its members were injured and its security centers were attacked. It is worth mentioning that head of African Commission, Musa Faqih, called on Sudanese military authorities to engage without further delay in a political process that leads to the return of constitutional order in the country at a time when observers of the issue in Sudan see that there is still a long way to go before resolving the political crisis in Sudan.
Tunisian General Labour Union warned of difficult situation in the country at a time when popular activities called for protest demonstration today in the capital. Asma again.
It seems that the situation in Tunisia is likely to worsen in light of difficult political, economic, and social conditions that Tunisia is experiencing. Activists called for organizing protest demonstrations in the capital Tunis in front of the parliament headquarters to denounce the political impasse and the aggravation of deteriorating economic situation that affected large sections of Tunisian society due to the oppressive economic catastrophe that the country has been experiencing for years. Assistant Secretary General of Tunisian General Labour Union Samir Al-Shifi warned that the social situation in the country is very problematic and threatens to cause social explosions. Al-Shifi considered that the union, the largest labor organization in Tunisia, was one of the forces that considered the decisions of the last July 25th were a natural result of the failure of an entire decade and its denial of the revolution's entitlements and objectives of the people in building a just social democratic state, fighting corruption and securing jobs for those who deserve it. Away from the economic crisis, political crises have been escalating in Tunisia since July 25th due to the exceptional measures taken by President Qais Said, which lead to believing that the situation is still far from being resolved.
The Algerian Prime Minister Ayman Abdulrahman announced his country's intention to abandon comprehensive support for basic materials and commodities by resorting to monetary and selective support. Zara Furjani reports.
Rebalancing the state budget and ensuring the continuity of public spending without compromising the support directed to vulnerable groups is a challenge to the Algerian government by launching radical reforms of the subsidy policy directed at controlling the prices of some basic commodities.
We included an amount of money of 1,942 billion Algerian dinar in Finance Law 2022. There is no doubt that the government will continue to provide social support and accompany the middle classes, and we hope that this support will be more effective this time. This support is directed to the families that you will define together. Also, the comprehensive support will be transferred to cash support.
A step justified by the Algerian Prime Minister with the government's effort to reduce expenditures and achieve efficiency in directing about $17 billion annually to the groups and families in need, not to mention curbing the growing phenomenon of smuggling subsidized materials across the border.
We will not accept that this support, which is $17 billion, be directed to people who do not deserve it, who are sabotaging the national economy and who want to continue looting it.
Launching a comprehensive and accurate census to draw a map of the groups and individuals involved in the new support mechanism precedes abandoning comprehensive support and moving towards selective cash support, an effort that the Algerian government paved the way for, including an item in the state budget draft for the next year.
Nigerian army members were killed in an attack held by the IS-linked group in the Askira-Uba area of Borno state that attacked put 3 soldiers and an army general to death. Usama Yadi reports.
According to the Nigerian Army's last statement to Saturday, 3 soldiers and an army general were killed in an IS-linked extremist group attack. The army members were killed in the Askira-Uba region in the state of Borno, which is the center of rebellion in the country for more than a decade. Many Nigerian public buildings were burned down due to the attack. A primary health care center and many public structures were destroyed by the extremist rebellious group. On his behalf, Nigerian Army spokesman declared that the army troops have responded to the attack and several members of IS-linked groups were killed. These insurgencies give clear sign that Islamic State-linked groups are still active in Africa's northeastern area, and they remain a serious threat in the region. Despite the repeated claims of the Nigerian army of realizing large success in fighting extremist groups of the Islamic State in West Africa province, which lost 2 of its leaders in army clashes during the last few months. Islamic State in West Africa province split from Boko Haram since 2016, but the extremist rebels remained united against Nigerian government, which on its part has expanded its existence to neighboring countries. Africa's northeastern region is still under the threat of extremist groups and insurgencies, and these last attacks reveal the activity of these rebels, although they have recently lost 2 important figures, Abu Mus'ab al-Barnawi and his successor Malam Baku, but the Nigerian military is still targeted.
To the South American continent, a bloody clash at an Ecuador prison left more than 60 inmates dead and another 25 injured. The clash between gangsters in Ecuadorian prisons is not the first to happen in these last couple of months. More in this report.
At least 68 prisoners died in a prolonged gun battle between rival gangs inside Ecuador's largest prison early Saturday. The fighting lasted for almost 8 hours in the lockup in the coastal city of Guayaquil. The repetitive prison brawls in the Ecuadorian lockups pushed Ecuador's President Guillermo Lasso to declare a state of emergency for the country's penitentiaries last month in order to free up resources and to increase control inside prisons.
The national government has taken immediate actions. First, the state of emergency is declared in the prison system in order to mobilize all the human and economic resources necessary to reestablish order. Secondly, a military control has been established in the access to the jail center in Filter 1, a police control in Filter 2 and 3, and thus practically a total control in the prison center.
Police entered the compound and found a rifle, explosives, 2 pistols and blades. The prison of Penitenciaria del Litoral knew a similar bloodshed months ago when 119 inmates were killed, becoming Ecuador's most violent prison. Ecuador's prisons currently accommodate about 9,000 more prisoners than they were designed to hold, officials say. The literal penitentiary prison was designed for around 5,000 inmates, but currently holds more than 8,000.
An explosion of minibus on a popular commercial area in Kabul killed 6 people and injured at least 7 more on Saturday. The explosion took place in a Shia-dominated zone. More details over this accident in this report.
6 people were killed, among which a very well-known journalist, and at least 7 were wounded, Saturday in a bus explosion in western Kabul. The journalist was identified as Hamid Tirani, who worked for the mainstream television station Ariana. The explosion occurred by installing a magnetic bomb in the passenger bus. It took place in the Dashti-Barchi area of western Kabul. No one has yet claimed responsibility for the attack. Yet, Dashti-Barchi has a large Shia Muslim ethnic Hazara population, which has been repeatedly targeted by the Islamic State militants. The militants carried out several deadly attacks at Dashti-Barchi, including an attack on a maternity hospital in 2020. Violence occurred near the Taliban checkpoint in the capital of Afghanistan. It is worth mentioning that last week at least 19 people, including a senior Taliban leader, were killed and 50 others were wounded in an ISIS attack on Kabul National Military Hospital.
After the newly lockdown that was imposed by the Dutch government due to the shores of COVID-19 pandemic lately, many protesters in Lower Rhine decided to stand against this new decision, while the police have arrested more than 15 people because of the riots. Islam Seed on what follow.
Videos showed protesters blowing up fireworks after the new procedures that was taken by the Dutch government, which required 3-week partial lockdown on Saturday after a surge in the number of people testing positive for COVID-19. 15 people have been arrested after hundreds went on against the new decision, and a riot broke out in the Dutch city of Leeuwarden on Saturday night. The Northern Netherlands police unit said many people refused to return back to their homes. Local media reported that under the new 3-week COVID-19 lockdown, restaurants and supermarkets must close at 8 p.m. and stores vending needless items have to close at 6 p.m. The decision includes sports as well, in which professional football matches have to be played in empty stadiums. Social separation measures have been reinstalled as part of the lockdown, which is the first in Western Europe since a new wave of infections began spreading throughout the continent. It's worth mentioning that Johns Hopkins University reported that Netherlands has seen over than 2 million COVID-19 cases and 19,138 deaths since the pandemic began.
And now it is time to be aware a little bit from the world of politics to some celebrity news in this report.
Meghan Markle's newly released text messages to a royal aide reveal the Duchess' concern about Prince Harry facing constant berating from the royal family. According to the UK Press Association, these texts between the royal and her former communications secretary were shared in court on Friday, November 12th, as part of Mail Online's appeal hearing. A judge ruled that the publication, owned by Associated Newspapers, Limited, unlawfully reproduced parts of Meghan's private letter to her estranged father, Thomas Markle.
Night before Christmas vacation. And the fun was in full swing.
You have split our family onto 2 separate flights.
And who says you can't go home again? 26 years after Home Alone turned Macaulay Culkin into the world's most famous child star and became a Christmas staple, the classic movie's Disney Plus remake is finally here. 7 times Home Sweet Home Alone paid homage to the original Home Alone.
I've gone to Tokyo. I'm totally on my own.
And Britney Spears is free from her conservatorship after a judge ruled in favor of termination Friday, ending the 13-year arrangement that has legally stripped the pop star from making her own personal and financial decisions.
And finally, we conclude with our exclusive news about Paris Hilton's wedding. Paris Hilton bought not 1 but 4 looks to the first night of her 3-day wedding affair. Check out all the gorgeous dresses. Paris Hilton wore 4 costume dresses during her fairy tale wedding. For the wedding ceremony, Hilton wore a costume Oscar de la Renta dress, which took months of designing, she told Vogue. Following the ceremony, Hilton changed into a second tulle gown designed by Galia Lahav for the couple's first dance.
Actually, the third outfit of the evening was a mini dress also created by Oscar de la Renta. For her final reception look, Hilton changed into a crystal-embellished full-length dress with a plunging V-neck line. And finally, these were our top celebrities news.
See you next time!
Ending up with sports, Kylian Mbappé scored his first hat-trick for France as the reigning world champions secured their place at the next year's World Cup in Qatar 2022, styled by thrashing Kazakhstan. Mbappé got 4 of the 8 goals, with the strike's first 3 coming in the opening 13 minutes. Victory guaranteed France will be on the top. They have 15 points, 4 clear of second, on Finland, 1 game remaining. On what follow the results of yesterday's game. And before we wrap up our news, here is a reminder of our main top stories. In Sudan, 6 casualties and protesters still moving forward. A newly expected Tunisian protesters over the political and economic crisis in the country. A prison bloody clash in Ecuador resulted in the death of 60 people and 25 injured. That's all for now. See you at 6. Bye-bye.